Randolph Scott interview that modifications the whole thing. Randolph Scott was born George Randolph Scott on January 23, 1890, in Orange County, Virginia. Changed into an iconic American actor whose call became synonymous with the Western genre. Raised in a rich family, Scott loved the privileges of a very good education and upbringing, which allowed him to increase a whole lot of capabilities from an early age. His father, George Grant Scott, turned into a tremendously respected administrator and businessman, while his mom, Lucille Crane Scott, turned into a female of lifestyle and refinement. The circle of relatives in the end moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, where Scott grew up, giving him the southern, gentlemanly appeal that he might later carry to his roles. Scott attended several prestigious faculties, including the Georgia Institute of Technology and the University of North Carolina, where he advanced a love for athletics, specifically soccer, even though, again, harm in the end ended his wearing objectives. With his athletic career halted, Scott sought out new paths, sooner or later made him to performing. However, before Hollywood claimed him, Scott served in World War I as an artillery observer, further shaping his person and strengthening his sense of subject and duty. After the struggle, Scott decided to pursue a profession in engineering, but his interest in the arts quickly took over. He enrolled on the Pasadena Playhouse in California, renowned theater college wherein his acting talents began to blossom. His first roles in Hollywood had been minor, and he started his profession playing supporting components in a number of genres. But it wasn't long earlier than Scott carved out a niche for himself in westerns, a genre that became rising in recognition on the time. His tall, rugged, and handsome look, combined together with his calm, steely demeanor, made him the correct hero for the wild frontier settings of the westerns. Over the direction of his career, Scott appeared in over 100 movies, with a significant element being westerns. His capability to portray a stoic yet principled guy of movement set him apart from many of his contemporaries. One of Scott's key collaborators turned into the mythical director Bud Bodichar, with whom he made numerous classic westerns in the 50s. Together, they created some of the most enduring movies of the genre, which includes the tall T-1000, 957 Experience, Lonesome, 1959, and Comanche Station, 1960. These movies, frequently referred to as Ranone Westerns, named after Scott's manufacturing company, Ranone Pictures, had been praised for their minimalist storytelling, complex characters, and ethical depth. Scott's roles in these movies were normally that of a sturdy, silent type, men who lived with the aid of a non-public code of honor and who often sought justice in an unforgiving global. While Scott is normally recognized for his westerns, his versatility as an actor allowed him to excel in other genres, which includes comedies, dramas, and battle films. Some of his excellent non-Western movies include My Favorite Wife, 1940, a romantic comedy co-starring Cary Grant, and To the Shores of Tripoli, 1942, a army drama. However, it became his work in westerns that defined his legacy. Audiences cherished Scott's portrayal of strong, moral characters, and his calm, constant presence on display screen supplied an experience of reassurance, particularly during instances of countrywide uncertainty, which included some point of World War II and the post-war years. One of the maximum extraordinary elements of Randolph Scott's profession is that he endured to enjoy giant box workplace achievement for the duration of the 1940s and 1950s, whilst westerns began to adapt into extra complex and now and again darker memories. Despite modifications within the genre, Scott remained a loved discern, bringing a sense of gravitas to his roles that saved audiences coming lower back. By the time he retired in the early 1960s, Scott had firmly established himself as one of the maximum successful and revered actors in Hollywood. Scott retired at the height of his profession after starring in Ride the High Country, 1962, a Western directed by way of Sam Peckinpah. The movie is now considered a traditional of the style, and Scott's overall performance changed into broadly praised for its nuance and intensity, marking a fitting give-up to his illustrious profession. After retiring from performing, Scott lived a quiet existence, taking part in the wealth he had amassed over time through wise investments. Despite his repute, Scott remained humble and avoided the spotlight, preferring to spend time together with his circle of relatives and near buddies. In his personal lifestyles, Scott was regarded for his robust experience of values and unwavering integrity, trends that mirrored the characters he played on display. He married 2 times, first to heiress Marion DuPont, although the marriage resulted in divorce. His 2D marriage to Patricia Stillman in 1944 lasted till his demise, and the couple had 2 followed kids together. Scott's non-public life was as regular and decent as his profession, and he turned into known as a real gentleman, eat on and rancid the display. The discovery of a protracted lost interview with Randolph Scott, the iconic megastar of Hollywood's golden age, ought to trade the entirety we thought we knew about the person at the back of the cowboy hat, Scott, who built a profession portraying robust, silent heroes in westerns, become more than simply an actor on horseback. This unearthed interview provides a glimpse into the complexities of his private lifestyles, his profession picks, and his philosophy on repute and filmmaking that have remained largely hidden until now, rarely granting interviews or sharing details about his personal life. His public character became one among stoic masculinity, formed with the aid of the jobs he took in films like Ride the High Country, 7 Men from Now, and limitless other westerns that cemented his region as a cowboy icon. However, Scott's off-screen lifestyles turned into some distance extra layered. The Lost interview exhibits a man who grappled with the pressures of fame, the sacrifices he made for his career, and his choice to preserve a boundary between his public image and private identity. In the interview, Scott reportedly opens up approximately the problems of dwelling under the shadow of his on-screen persona. For years, audiences viewed him as the embodiment of the best Western hero, rugged, moral, and unyielding. But the interview shows that Scott frequently felt trapped with the aid of the very picture that had made him well. The cowboy roles were usually near my heart, he is quoted as pronouncing, "But there has been extra to me than only a guy with a gun." This candid admission challenges the traditional narrative of Scott as a man absolutely at ease along with his vicinity in Hollywood, suggesting that he yearned for greater, complicated, and varied roles that could explicit the whole variety of his competencies. One of the maximum interesting revelations from the Lost interview is Scott's deep, many years lengthy friendship with fellow actor Cary Grant, though Hollywood has lengthy speculated on the character in their dating. The interview sheds new mild on their bond, which turned into, in lots of approaches, ahead of its time. Scott speaks fondly of his time residing with Grant in a shared seashore house throughout the 1930s, often called Bachelor Hall, by using the press. The pair's friendship became the challenge of a great deal tabloid gossip, with rumors swirling approximately the character in their closeness. In the interview, Scott doesn't shrink back from discussing the effect this hypothesis had on their lives. He dismisses the rumors as unfounded, however recognizes that their courting was unconventional for the time. "Cary and I were like brothers," Scott explains. "Hollywood likes to turn the whole lot into a story, but for us, it changed into simple, 2 guys who determined comfort in every difference organization." This announcement speaks volumes about the pressures of residing under the steady scrutiny of Hollywood's megastar-making machine and the way such friendships had been regularly misinterpreted in a global, obsessed-on image. Perhaps one of the most captivating aspects of the interview is Scott's philosophy on performing and filmmaking. Known for his selective nature when selecting initiatives, Scott famous a sturdy set of standards that guided his selections in the course of his profession. He talks about the importance of ethical integrity in his roles, stating that he usually sought to painting characters with a clear sense of proper and incorrect, which resonated with the American public at some stage in the put-up World War II generation. Scott's collaboration with director Bud Boticher on a series of westerns in the 50s, regularly known as the Randolph cycle, changed into a defining duration of his career. In the interview, Scott reflects on those films with excellent satisfaction, noting that they allowed him to discover the complexities of the getting older hero, a subject matter that might later be echoed in films like Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven. Those films were one of a kind, Scott says. They weren't pretty much gunfights. They had been about guys coming to terms with their pasts, their mortality, and the outcomes in their choices. This nuanced view of his paintings shows a depth of idea and intentionality in the back of his roles that many fans and critics may additionally have left out. The interview also delves into the reasons at the back of Scott's unexpected and whole retirement from appearing in 1962 after his final movie Ride the High Country. Unlike many actors of his generation, Scott selected to step far away from Hollywood at the height of his popularity. In the interview, he explains that this decision prompted with the aid of a preference to stay, a more peaceful, personal existence, unfastened from the needs of the film industry. I desired to leave on my own terms, Scott displays. I'd given the whole thing I needed to the display, and it changed into time for me to locate peace far from the cameras. Scott's retirement has frequently been viewed as a final act of dignity, a refusal to allow his profession to fade slowly as such a lot of others had. But the misplaced interview provides some other layer to this narrative, revealing that Scott turned into additionally deeply influenced via his non-public lifestyles and relationships, mainly his marriage to his second spouse, Patricia Stillman, whom he describes as his anchor at some point of turbulent times. She gave me the steadiness I needed, Scott says. With her, I should sooner or later be myself. Randolph Scott surpassed away on March 2, 1987, at the age of 89 in Beverly Hills, California. His death marked the quit of a generation in Hollywood, and he's remembered nowadays as one of the greatest Western stars of all time. His movies continue to be celebrated by means of fans of the style, and his contribution to the Western's golden age has left an indelible mark on the history of cinema. Though he hardly ever sought the limelight, Scott's legacy as a cinematic icon endures, and his call stays synonymous with the American Western hero.